Intelligence and creativity. There is considerable disagreement about the nature of intelligence, including how intelligence should best be defined. Much of the controversy centers on two key issues. Is intelligence a single general ability, or is it a cluster of different mental abilities? Should the definition of intelligence be restricted to the mental abilities measured by IQ and other intelligence tests, or should intelligence be defined more broadly? British psychologist Charles Spearman advanced the theory that a factor he called general intelligence, or the G factor, was responsible for people's overall performance on tests of mental ability. American psychologist Lewis L. Thurstone believed that there are 7 different primary mental abilities, each a relatively independent element of intelligence. Howard Gardner, a contemporary American psychologist, contends that there are multiple intelligences, 8 independent intelligences, with each being defined within the context of a particular culture. Robert Sternberg agrees with Gardner that intelligence is a much broader quality than is reflected in the narrow range of mental abilities measured by a conventional IQ test. Sternberg's Triarchic theory of intelligence emphasizes both the universal aspects of intelligent behavior and the importance of adapting to a particular social and cultural environment. Sternberg has proposed a different conception of intelligence, which he calls successful intelligence, which involves 3 distinct types of mental abilities: analytic, creative, and practical. Analytic intelligence refers to the mental processes used in learning how to solve problems, such as picking a problem-solving strategy and applying it. Creative intelligence is the ability to deal with novel situations by drawing on existing skills and knowledge. Practical intelligence involves the ability to adapt to the environment and often reflects what is commonly called street smarts. The roles of genetics and environment in determining intelligence. Virtually all psychologists agree that both hereditary and environment are important in determining intelligence level. However, the relative quantities of each continue to be debated. What is known is that environmental factors influence which genes are switched on or activated. Individuals inherit a potential range for a trait, and environmental factors determine how close they come to realizing that genetic potential. The genetic range of intellectual potential is influenced by many genes, not by a single gene. Twin studies. The heredity environment issue has been explored by comparing the IQ scores of individuals who are genetically related to different degrees. Identical twins share exactly the same genes. Any dissimilarities between them must be due to environmental factors rather than to heredity factors or differences. Genetically fraternal twins are like any other pair of siblings. The closer the genetic relationship, the more similar the IQ scores. Environmental influences are demonstrated by the fact that identical twins raised in different homes have different IQ scores, and genetically unrelated people raised in the same home have IQs that are much more similar than those of 2 unrelated people from randomly selected homes. Researchers have scientifically estimated heritability, which is the percentage of variation within a given population that is due to heredity. The currently accepted heritability estimate for intelligence is about 50% for the general population. That is, about 50% of the difference in IQ scores within a given population is due to genetic factors. Remember that these estimates apply only to groups, not to specific individuals. Much controversy surrounds the differences in average IQ for different racial groups. In early childhood, there are no significant differences in IQ among European American, Japanese, and Chinese school children. Yet by middle school, Asian students tend to be much higher in score than American students on both math and reading tests. The difference seems to be due to their different educational systems. The most controversy has been caused by the differences in average IQ scores between Black and white Americans. As a group, Black Americans once scored about 15% lower than the white Americans as a group. However, this gap has narrowed over the past decades to 10 points or less. Group differences do not predict individual differences in IQ scores. The range and degree of IQ variation within each group is much greater than the 10-point average difference between Black Americans and white Americans. Differences within groups versus differences between groups. It is possible to estimate the degree of difference within a specific group that is due to heredity, but not to the difference between groups that is due to heredity. Few differences in the environment in which children are raised. The researchers found that Black children raised in high SES white families had higher average IQ scores than the average scores of both Black and white children. Score and Weinberg concluded that IQ differences are not due to race, but rather by the socioeconomic conditions and cultural values to which children are exposed. A survey of intelligence tests shows around the world, 14 nations were found to have shown significant gains in average IQ scores in just one generation. Such changes in a population can be accounted for only by environmental changes because the amount of time is far too short for genetically influenced changes to have occurred.